With so many businesses being negatively affected across Tobago by the COVID-19 pandemic, the Division of Community Development, Enterprise Development and Labour, through its Business Development Unit, has introduced its COVID-19 Business Relief Loan and Grant Initiative. I am here with Mrs. Shelly-Ann Batiste, Manager of the Business Development Unit in the division, who will be providing us with some detailed information about the COVID-19 business relief. Hi, Mrs. Batiste.
Hi, Kimberly.
All right. So first of all, just tell us exactly what is the COVID-19 business relief?
Thank you very much for having this conversation with us. The business relief is our response, the Business Development Unit, and by extension the Tobago House of Assembly is our response to the obvious shortfall that would have resulted as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic upon our small, micro and meso entrepreneurs. We are aiming in the first instance to circumvent the negative impact on those who are engaged in the provision of what we call the essential services. So let me highlight what we would consider essential services. Just as the government would have highlighted the essential services of food, pharmacy, in the similar light, we are targeting those entrepreneurs in the small, micro and meso sectors, as I said before, who are involved in these sectors. So for example, fishing and farming, because we need to continue to eat. Those involved in the agro-processing, and there is already market available. So we're not looking at those who just producing just to put them on the shelves. But for example, there's a demand from the supermarkets because supermarkets are still buying these products. We are talking about those persons in the garment manufacturing sector, for example, who are providing face masks. Those in the cleaning industry providing the hand sanitizers and the hand soaps. Those who doing litter eradication and cesspool services. So those who are directly involved in the provision of essential services. We also want to highlight, not because we say that we have cut off from everything else, but we want you to understand that priority will be given to these essential service providers.
Right. And I know you gave a list of the essential services, but I know there probably will be a further breakdown. Just tell us who will really be eligible to apply for this relief.
Okay, so the Executive Council would have taken a decision to waive some of the existing policies as regards the loan and grant program. So previously, if you would have accessed a grant before, the grant was a one-off. That has since been waived. So it is extended to new and existing clients, and both facilities still exist. That is the loan facility and the grant facility. So you are producing bread, cakes, pastry, things that are in demand right now, and you are grant or loan client, whether previous or you are now interested in accessing our services, then yes, you are eligible to apply.
All right. So what documents will be needed when people are trying to apply for these?
Okay, so the general checklist still applies, because I want to emphasize and re-emphasize, if nothing else. So not because it is a COVID response, it means that all our financial regulation goes through the door.
Right.
We want to re-emphasize that we must maintain transparency and accountability. So we have provided on our Facebook page the checklist that governs the requirements for the grant and similarly for the loan. The policy as regards the provision of a police certificate of character has been waived, because we understand the challenge in getting that. But in terms of the other documentations, the invoices, your utility bills, those are still accessible. We are not encouraging persons to go into businesses. Many of the suppliers have now an online presence so that you can send your request to these businesses and they will email you an invoice. We have actually started receiving applications that are perfect in terms of what we are requiring. So you get your invoices, you can fill out the application form online, you can download, or you can collect hard copy at our security booth. Of course, we want to minimize the amount of persons bombarding physically because we still want you to observe the social distancing. So you can download or fill out the application forms online. When you have all the documents, you scan and upload to applications.bdu@gmail.com.
Okay.
Let me say this again. applications.bdu@gmail.com.
All right. So we've been talking about the loan and the grants.
Yes.
Okay, for persons who are not too sure, what is the difference between the loan and the grant when applying?
Okay. The grant is the assistance you get that you don't have to repay. The Executive Council has now increased the limit. Previously it was 25,000. It has now been extended to 50,000. I also want to put a plug here that not because we say 50,000 it means everybody who applies will access 50,000. For the simple reason that one, we want to share around, as the Prime Minister would say, that everybody get equal share of the pie. Two, the demand that you may have, you cannot in all honesty, if you buy $50,000 worth of stock, where will you put it? So if your capacity only allows you to do a turnover of 10,000, then that is what you will have access to. So the grant is a non-pay. And then the loan facility, of course, is a facility that you have to pay back. The loan previously was 250,000. That has now been increased to 500,000. The interest rate previously was 5%. That has now been reduced to 3%. And again, as we see, because we are trying to assist persons who have been negatively affected.
So after persons have submitted applications, what will be the process following that?
Okay. So the Business Development Unit, we will receive all applications. We will initiate the application process in that it will be sorted according to zones. An officer will be assigned to that individual. We will call you in by appointment only to complete the process. From then on, of course, that's why we are asking persons as far as possible to provide us with all the information that we are requesting so that it minimizes the processing time. So after you would have submitted your application, an officer will contact you, we make an appointment, and you come in, and individually we complete the process.
So in terms of the funds, when receiving funds, what can they actually be used for in the businesses?
Okay, so for the grant, well, both facilities primarily, what we are looking for, or what we are extending the facility to, is for the purchase of stock. Because, for example, like mini-marts, we know that your turnover will be high now, you will be in demand. So you are allowed to access funding for stock, for the purchase of equipment, and for working capital. We must emphasize, again, remember we're talking about accountability, so that the funds will be made third party. That's why we are asking persons to provide invoices. So ideally, and in most cases, funds will be made payable to the supplier. If, however, as we're talking about working capital, someone you can provide documentary evidence. In that instance, the check can be made payable to the business owner. And when we're talking about documentary evidence, for example, your deposits over the last 6 months or your expenditure, We want to ensure as well that persons have been paying, for example, NIS, to ensure that you have been meeting your statutory obligations, because that's one of the complaints we've had, even in our collaboration with the other units and departments that are providing similar assistance. Yes, persons are making demands for funding, but they have not been keeping up their end of the bargain. Right? So you cannot come and make a demand and say you want $100,000, but your evidence, your business record shows that you have only been able to turn over $25,000 per month in sales. Okay. Right? So in terms of that, that's what we're asking about, documentary evidence. When the checks are provided, as I said, it will be made to the supplier. The supplier now has a responsibility to stamp and sign that they have issued the item. And then the client must now bring that back to us, because we don't want people to circumvent the system, as well as we want to avoid the double dipping. So, for example, the Division of Agriculture also has similar facilities, similar relief for persons in the agriculture sector. We will be collaborating so that you cannot be double dipping and shopping around. So that the services that are being provided by the Division of Agriculture, we will not be providing. Because, as I said, the resources are limited, and we want to ensure that as many persons as possible benefit from the service.
So just to be clear, it's forbidden. You do not go to one division and get help, and then jump to our next one and get help.
And come for the same thing.
The same thing?
Yes.
All right, no problem. Understand. And in terms of repayment, how will that work? When will the person accessing the grant or the loan be expected to repay?
Right. Remember, we said the grant is not a repayment.
Right.
So you've gotten the grant, that's it. Mm-hmm. Of course, part of the requirement in our grant facility is that you must sign an agreement. Part of the agreement for the grant states that you are agreeing the purpose for which you have accessed the funds, you will be using it for that. Right. If after we do our monitoring, we realize that you have somehow tried or attempted to default the government, it will then be converted to a loan which you have to repay. Right. It also debars you from any further facility offered by the division. So for example, you might have had a grant before, you cannot then come back for a loan because you would have automatically debarred yourself. Right. In terms of the loan facility, once you have accessed payment, the check has been dispersed, funds have been dispersed, in this business relief, we are allowing the first 3 months a moratorium. Okay. Means you do not have to start paying until the 4th month. However, that can also be extended to up to 6 months. Okay. We are not saying, let us re-emphasize, it is not automatic that you are getting 6 months to start. Right. It is automatic that you're getting 3 months. And as we monitor, it can be extended based on the scenario, based on the sector. It may be extended to a further 6 months. Okay. So would it be a general payback period, or will every individual have their own discussion with the officers? Yes. The repayment is based upon, one, the quantum that you access, as well as your ability to repay. So even if you would have come for a loan of 100,000, 200,000, 300, each application is assessed on its own merit. You must be able to satisfy that you have the capacity to repay the loan. Remember, it is a loan, and we must be accountable for government funds, for public funds. So therefore, if you cannot satisfy the requirements, you will not be given the loan, because we do not want to create delinquency. Right. Yes, we are assisting you, but it is anticipated that in return, you will service the loan so that somebody else will be able to benefit from the service.
Okay. So before we end, Mrs. Batiste, do you have any closing remarks to give to the public?
Yes. I want to appeal to everybody. as we have been mandated, we've been asked time and time again to remember to practice the social distancing. Remember, as we say, to flatten the curve. Do not become overwhelmed with everything that is happening around. Do not be overwhelmed. We just want to remind you that as the Business Development Unit, and by extension the Division of Community Development, Enterprise Development and Labor, we are here to assist. Do not be overwhelmed with everything that is happening around you. Access the facilities that we have provided. We are asking as far as possible, use the online portal to submit your applications. Again, applications can be submitted, applications.bdu@gmail.com. Assist us, cooperate with us, provide the requirements, provide the documentations that we are asking for, so that we will be able to assist you. Let us work together to overcome this pandemic. All the best, be safe, and be strong. Thank you.
If you would like to find out some more information about our COVID-19 business relief, you can contact the Business Development Unit in the division at 639-4818, extension 2024, where our officers will be on hand to assist.